Hi, welcome. We're going to let people slowly pop in here on the screen. All righty. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Leah Straley. I am the Assistant Dean of Recruitment at Willamette Law, and I have seen a lot of you. Let's see, I think people are still popping in here. And I hope to see all of you this fall if we haven't yet met. Welcome to our student panel. We are going to wait another minute here to see if we can get people in. So all of the admitted students, you guys are automatically muted. If you would like to ask a question, there is a raise your hand feature that you can find at the bottom of your screen. So please explore that and raise your hand if you have a question. And there is also the chat feature at the bottom. So if you would like to type in a question via the chat, then please feel free to do that. To begin, I'm going to have our three panelists do a very quick introduction of themselves. So if you guys could give your name, your year, a little bit of background about yourself, and then I will begin by asking a few questions that we were asked before the panel began, and then it will be up to you guys to ask questions and interact with our panelists. I do want to mention that this is being recorded, so for anyone who does not want their image to be recorded, please turn your video off. But just so you know, this will be recorded and the link will be available for other admitted students to access in the future. All right. So Megan, why don't you begin with a short introduction of yourself, and then we'll move on to you, Blaine, and then Jaime.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Mizuta. I'm in my second year for like another week, and then I'm going to start calling myself a 3L. Only 4 more finals in the way of that. I'm from Boise, Idaho. Before I came to law school, I was a museum registrar in Utah. And I'm on law review here, part of the Asian Pacific American Law Student Association, and I'm hoping to practice appellate law, which is just working on appeals.
Oh, Blaine, we have to unmute.
I'm muted.
There
Rookie
you go.
mistake. Rookie mistake. I just wanted to, ease the tension in the room. My name's Blaine Soleimani Pearson. I'm currently a 1L, and I am originally from California, but been in Oregon for the last 6.5 years. Had a couple different careers. I worked for Apple for a few years, and then worked in real estate for a few more after that, and then decided to go to law school. So I've been enjoying that. I live in the Portland area with my wife, and she's supporting me through this exciting time.
And then Jaime Madrigal, second year law student. I'm from Umatilla, Oregon, which is Northeast Oregon, about 4.5 hours out of Salem. So I'm here zooming from my bedroom at home. And I did my undergrad at College of Idaho. I spent 1 year from undergrad to law school. So I took a gap year, just a gap year to figure out how to pay for law school. And then at the law school, I'm involved. I'm part of the moot court and president of the Multicultural Law Student Association group on campus. I'm also involved with the Latinx Law Student Association on campus. And then I think I decided early on, I think as early as my freshman year of high school, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I've just kept up with it and finally close as I can be. So yeah, I'm a year removed from taking the bar, so that should be fun.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to begin with a question that was sent into the admissions office. Can you, and any panelist can chime in, please describe the classroom environment and the grading expectations?
Blaine, do you want to take like 1L classes and I'll take some of the upper, smaller classes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, 1L experience is a different animal, or so I'm told. That's all I have exposure to. But it's going to very much depend on the professors you have. You know, there can be wildly different. Well, wildly might be too strong a word, but there can be different grading criteria depending on the professor you have. But the easiest way to get the answer to that is by just attending class and going to office hours and talking to them. But essentially, all of your grade is going to depend for the most part on your final exam. So you know, making sure you take great notes and you know, compare those notes with some trusted people and kind of get a conglomeration of the best information, and then performance on that 3-hour exam at the end. So that's going to be how most of your grade is determined. And then you'll have a writing class, which you'll write different assignments, small writing assignment, large writing assignment in each semester, and that will be your one writing non-test class in your 1L year. If that was too broad, I can expound on it, but I feel like that's broad strokes.
Yeah, and then when you get to your second and third years, you have some choice about what classes you want to take. Your first year, I'd say across the country, you're going to be taking all the same classes, kind of your core stuff. And then second and third year, you get to pick some fun stuff. And in my experience, kind of what I think of are the fun classes are quite small, and they might be more discussion based. And you won't necessarily have that one 3-hour final exam as your whole grade. I've taken like a seminar on the Supreme Court, and half of our final grade was we did a mock Supreme Court using current cases before the court, and you got to, you know, be a justice, be an advocate. And yeah, they're a little more interactive. And when people start self-selecting into the areas that they're really interested in, I think it just gets even better.
I want to attack Alexandra's question, which is, that's a very personal question, and it depends on you, and you know you. My biggest advice about prepping is that you're just not going to be able to know everything. You just have to be comfortable with the ambiguity. You're going to hear that a lot. But take as many practice issue spotting scenarios as you can. That'll make more sense as you get more exposed to this stuff, but that's going to be what you're going to need to practice, is seeing what the problems are and applying what you've learned to fix those problems. So I would just say expose yourself to as much of that as you can through a lot of the resources you'll learn more about as you go through Intro to Law week and all that, however that's going to pan out.
Right. And I will expound upon what Blaine just said about our introduction to law. So for the past many, many years, we have offered a week-long course before classes, before orientation begins, and then before classes begin. And that is a time when students come to campus. It is optional, but it's a great learning experience for how to learn how to brief a case. Really learn what it feels like to sit in a classroom with a professor in front of you at law school. You also really get to know your classmates really well. So that's really a prep program, Willamette style, before law school begins. Now, as many of you know, things are a little bit different this year. We don't yet know what orientation and what intro to law looks like. However, there will be something that will be offered. If it is in this format, we may be all meeting again in this way, but just to let you know, there will be some type of introduction to law program like we have had in the past, and there will be an orientation program. Alrighty, so we will move on to another question. Thank you for that question, Alexandra. For the panelists, we have a question about financing your legal education. Scholarships, loans, how are you financing your legal education if you choose to answer that? And then while you are on campus, have you had the opportunities for paid externships or internships or a legal job that has helped with income while you are in law school?
I'll go ahead and answer this. So I think part of like my finance in law school is through my scholarship. I would say a big chunk. I think it pays for about 70%. So then I have that scholarship, and then I spent a gap year. And on during my gap year, I worked, so I saved up enough money for. I think the first year I didn't actually take out any loans, so I financed like 70% through the scholarship, and then the other 30 just through money that I had saved up, and my parents helping out and stuff. And then, but after that, so after my first year, it's still like, and I guess tuition goes up, so it went down to about 68, 67%. The scholarship is what it covers, and then the rest, I mean, I would say about 20% of it is loans, and then the other, like for my 2L year, I used my summer money that I got from my job to pay for the fall semester, and then for spring, just the combination of some money that I had saved up from that job, and then my parents helping out. But as far as like paid internships, so I did have over my 1L summer, I had 2 different jobs that I got. I turned one down. I was in Salem, but just because it didn't really make sense for me. I'm from Eastern Oregon, so I could live with my parents at home, like no rent, no money on groceries or anything, just because my parents like provide it all. So I spent my summer at home, and I was actually getting paid like double, I think, what I would have made in Salem. So it just didn't make sense for me to stay in Salem. And so I was able to get that through, it was actually a stipend through the bar. And it was like the diversity and inclusion part of the bar offers a stipend, and you apply for it in January, but it pretty much pays for you to get a like job that normally wouldn't be paid. And so I was able to get something out here. I worked at the Umatilla Indian Reservation, and like I was a law clerk there. So yeah, that was one of my options this summer. I'll actually be working in Salem remotely, but so in Eastern Oregon, but I'll be working for the Department of Justice, and that's also paid.
I'll also share. I'm doing a combo of federal loans and scholarship. Willamette is one of the few law schools that I found that offers a full tuition scholarship. And I hope, even though you're all admitted and presumably have your packages, I hope you're asking for more from everyone. Please do that. No one will be offended if you do that. That's like part of the deal. And then I also, like Jaime, I worked during the summer, and then I worked part-time during the school year. I think a lot of the law jobs you're gonna find are gonna average like $15 an hour. Yeah, which is kind of, it's not the most money, but you'll make money later. And I don't think I think it's relatively common for a lot of us to have legal jobs during your second and third year. And I'm gonna start another paid clerkship that's paid through work study that I'll have over the summer and then through the school year as well. So definitely some debt on the other side of it, but I'm going with the investment mindset.
Just real quickly on this, I think you guys hit most of it. I would just say, don't avoid the math on this. Really look at it and find out if you're in a position to pay for school. And if you're not, find out how you can. And if you need, sorry, Leah, don't hate me. If you need to defer for a year, or if you need to do something, I mean, do the thing that puts you in the best position to succeed, because law school is hard enough. You don't need to add the additional weight of, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to pay for next semester? So however you do it, utilizing all those resources, just do the math now, figure it out so nothing's a surprise to you later.
Thank you, guys. Also, I wanted to mention on our website, we have external scholarships that are available to all entering law students. So these are not scholarships that are affiliated with Willamette at all, but they give you an opportunity to apply for outside money. So you do have to do a little work. Usually you have to fill out an application, write an essay. Some you may qualify for, some you may not, but that is definitely something worth checking out. If you can get an extra $1,000, a couple of $1,000 per semester, that can be very helpful. For those who joined us a little bit late, I wanted to mention that there is a chat function. So if you have a question that you would like to ask our panelists, then please use the chat function. There's also a raise your hand function, so you may use that also. So if you'd like to ask a question, then please feel free to do that. I want to move the conversation a little bit toward faculty and Uh, Perhaps if you have a favorite faculty member and why that person is your favorite. And then if the panelists can speak a little bit about the support that you have experienced on campus from faculty members.
Blaine, you want to go first?
I love talking. I want to give other people the opportunity. First, I want to just say I met Dean Straley when she wasn't Dean Straley. So I said Leah, and I just want to, you should use people's proper titles. So I just want to apologize for that. She's Dean Straley. She's not Leah. So it's hard to like transition when you meet someone. Anyway, so she's Dean Straley. Anyway, find a professor that you really connect with and go to their office hours, talk to them, seek advice. I mean, for as much as they're able to provide to you. And be kind of in control of your own destiny with that. Now you'll get like a faculty advisor or mentor. I can't remember the exact term of it, but you'll get an assigned faculty kind of mentor that's kind of supposed to help you through basic questions and how to get through things. But I was able to find a professor, my LRW professor, who has been great, and she's counseled me on areas outside of law school, in law school, jobs. I mean, totally outside the realm of what she needs to do for her job. And it's been great. And so I just recommend meet as many professors as you can in their office hours, get to know who you click with and who you want to emulate and try and get them. And it's not just the professors, it's also the library faculty. They know what they're talking about, become friends with them. Just seek it out, find the person you connect with and someone whose advice you would, you respect and whose opinion you respect, and just eat up as much information as they can give you. But I would not be able to have done it alone, and I relied on that. So I advise you do the same.
Okay, I'm going to go and then Jaime, I think.
Okay.
One of my favorite professors is actually an adjunct. It's Justice Garrett from the Oregon Supreme Court. One of the super nice things about Willamette is that, surprise, even though people hate Salem, it is the capital. And I really like Salem, for the record. But that means that our courts, our appellate courts, sit here, and so we get them as professors a lot. I think in the last year, like 4, 2 from Court of Appeals, 2 from the Supreme Court teach classes. So I took legislation and regulation with Justice Garrett, and just having a Supreme Court justice as your professor is what you think it would be, except like way more fun. Then you're like, oh, judges are normal people. And then on top of just him being a great professor, he's a great professional connection. Like I'm applying to clerk after I graduate for the Oregon Supreme Court. And I was like, Justice Garrett, will you write me a letter of recommendation? So someone that's works at the place that I want to work is doing that. You know, and we see them around. We see them when campus is open, you know, they're in the cafeteria. So it's just a really cool way to capitalize on the location, to have them teach, and they are such experts. And it's so cool, especially if you want to practice in Oregon, to be like, oh yes, this is the person interpreting the law. And he's grading my paper and giving me feedback about it. So, Jaime.
Yeah, I have a lot of favorites, so I just won't name any just because I have too many, but it just differs. Some of them are favorites just because of their style of teaching. So I have a tendency, though, if they're really good teachers, they become my favorite professors, but then I don't ever go visit them in office hours just because I don't feel the need to, since they've done such a good job in class. And so that's been, for me, like this past fall semester, I took Dean Williams' constitutional law class. I never visited him during office hours just because I felt like he touched on everything during class. But then some of the professors that I've had, and not to say that they're bad, but some of my other favorite have been just from me not understanding the material as much and just going into office hours, getting questions answered. And then that's turned into like me having now professors that I can go to and ask for those letters of recommendation. So I just had that. I applied to clerkship for post-graduation, and it was easy. Like during my undergrad, I remember having to get letters of rec was a lot harder because I didn't really have as many conversations with my professors as I do now. And like this time it was okay. I have about 10 professors that I could go to that can probably write me a good letter. So it was just a matter of going to which one I felt most comfortable with. And so I had 3 professors write me a letter of rec. Um, and I think just from those conversations that you have outside of class, it helps because it helps them write a better letter. I was actually able to see the letters that they wrote. I don't know if that's typical, but so I can just see, and they had me just like, oh, okay, can you review this? Just make sure everything's good. So once I was reading them, like you can tell which professors or how professors write them. It's like better if they do know you outside of class rather than just having you in class and being able to say, hey, this person got a good grade. It's like I had professors write about stuff that I told them outside of class or like outside the class subject. And so it was pretty nice to see that like come up on the letter because they remember.
All right, thank you guys. Would anyone like to take a stab at Nanette's question? She is asking if you could go back to the beginning of your first year, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself about how to better succeed in law school? And then secondly, what would you tell yourself about time management for the first year?
I'll start us. Um, I had no idea how much the legal profession is a business. I think I really thought it was more academic and scholarly and that there wasn't, billing and networking and all of that. So that just kind of took me a little by surprise. It's been pretty easy to acclimate to it because so many people, especially I think it's like 15,000 lawyers in Oregon, want to help you succeed. So it's not like a scary wall of lawyers that you're trying to like break your way into. But yeah, just being prepared and understanding that there is a huge business side of law. Even if you're doing some type of law that you didn't think had any relationship to business. So.
I mean, you want to take it? I'll go last this time.
And you don't all have to answer the question. So if you want to pass, say pass.
He waved his hand, so I guess I'll go. So I would say time management is different for a lot of people. I notoriously throughout my whole life was not a good time manager. I was a bad student and, all the way through high school. I didn't get good until I decided to go back to college when I was 23 years old. So you've learned, you're all adults, even if you don't feel like it, you're all adults. And you've all learned what works and what doesn't work for you. I think you just need to have a brave conversation with yourself, seek out help of those who know you and ask what works and what doesn't work. And then make a plan according to that, because what works for me might not work for you. A couple universalities, is that? Yeah, I don't know. Being in law school for years taught me to make up words. Are that you can only study so much in a day. So pick those hours wisely. Take breaks. I'm going to get real close. Take breaks. You cannot work for 15 hours straight without a break and make it quality work. So just figure out your method, bounce it off of the people that know you. If you're someone that does better when you're pacing around your room, then pace around your room. If you're someone who does better with a small group of people, then find some people in your first few weeks of law school and make a study group together. So just find the thing that works. I've seen people succeed that don't talk to anyone, and I've seen people succeed that are in groups of 6 people. Yeah.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is, because for me, I don't really typically like questions like these, just because even though I tell myself, okay, I found out what worked for me first semester and how to work best, I keep just changing it up just because a different semester calls for a different thing. I've just been changing too much. But one thing that I would say is just keep the excitement up. I think we come into law school, you're super excited about the material, and you can get to a point where it just becomes super repetitive. You're doing same things over and over, just different subject, but same things in every class. And that got a little boring to me. So I got to like my second semester, I wasn't as excited for the courses just because it wasn't something new anymore. It just didn't feel the same. So then what I told myself going into my second year was, hey, I got to be excited for everything that I'm taking, just as I was during my 1L year. And I think that helped. Last semester was, or fall semester from 2L year was my best grade wise. And I just think just because I was more engaged with the material, being excited for what was coming the next day, and so it just kept my engagement up, which ultimately led to me doing better on finals, doing better on paper. So I would say just try to remind yourself why you're here, and just stay excited about law school, and yeah, don't let it get to you. But as far as like time management, for me, first semester I did like no video games. So I play a lot of video games, so I didn't have my video games with me, but that didn't really work for me. So I had to go back to having video games in, and just at the end of the day, just make sure that you get your stuff done, and then you can have fun. So,
And just to prove my point, Jaime was involved in a lot of extracurriculars and like intramurals and stuff like that. So just that proves my point of you can't just be studying nonstop all the time.
All righty. Thank you, guys. Kind of along the same vein, Tony is asking kind of what your average day looks like your first year. So did you have a study plan? Did you set a schedule for yourself? And did that work for you?
I did. I'm a huge, wait, sorry, Jaime, do you want to go? You go and then I'll go.
Okay. Yeah. So during my first semester, the way I scheduled my stuff, so we had classes up until, we had a few breaks, but we had classes typically like from 9 till about 3. I think our last class ending around 3. And so I would just take that time to get prepared for those classes. Like whatever class I was going to, I was usually just looking at my materials just to make sure that I was ready for a cold call or just ready for anything. But then what it looked like for me after class, it was from 3 to about 8. With a break for dinner. I'd go from 3 to about 8, read everything for the next day, and then I'd go home. And from about 8 to 10, so I didn't have my video games that first semester. So all I would do was Netflix for about 2 hours, or call my mom, or just talk to some friends. And then I would just go to bed. But it was like that every single day. Like I would carve out that time 3 to 8 for dinner, and getting through all my materials. And so sometimes, I mean, you get distracted. So there'd be days when I had to go off schedule a bit, but that just meant I would get home at 9:30 instead of 8. So it wasn't too bad. And I thought like my main priority during first semester was getting everything read and getting a lot of sleep. So for me, that was important, and I definitely got a lot of sleep.
Yeah, and I would say your classes are going to be like an hour to an hour and a half. They might meet twice a week or 3 times a week. And I was going to say, like, I'm a huge planner. Like, here's my planner. And I roll into school. I try to get there by 8. I am done by 7. I'm like hard stop at 7. And then I go home and I relax. Or I leave the desk and go to the couch and relax. And then I would usually come in and spend like sometime on the weekend, maybe like a chunk of 4 hours and a chunk of 6. But it's all doable. You just have to be able to prioritize, I think.
Alrighty. So Kyle is asking, what made you pick Willamette over other schools?
I'll go first on this one. So prior to my gap year, I had applied to the 3 Oregon schools straight from undergrad, and I got accepted into all 3 at the time, but I just didn't have enough scholarship money to like make it feasible. So then I took a visit. I remember taking a visit through all 3 schools, and this is how I ultimately decided Willamette was the one. But I took a visit to all 3 schools on the same week, and first stop was Lewis and Clark. And just my experience there, I wasn't the best, just because they just told me, okay, go to room 111, figure it out. I had to figure it out. I just kind of went there. I didn't know whether to sit at the back, sit at the front. Like I didn't really know anything. No one walked me there, so it took me a while to find it. And so I was just, I mean, it wasn't the best of experiences. I went around the tour, like the campus tour. They just showed me everything, and then they never really introduced me to anyone. So I was like, okay, well, it was the first visit I had, so I didn't think much of it. But then it was when I got to Willamette that I really noticed, I mean, the difference, just because at Willamette, so it was raining. First off, it was raining, and someone came to meet me at the parking lot with an umbrella. So that was like the first nice gesture, you know, like, okay, I'm in a good place. Just because they're willing to come out. He gave me the umbrella and then walked back and got all wet. I was like, all right, like, cool. But that was pretty nice. And then even just going on the campus tour alone, I got to sit in on the class as well. And I forgot to add this, but at Lewis and Clark, the professor left as soon as the class was done. At Willamette, Professor Wise, and I still remember, I never had a class with him, but I still remember our conversation. He stayed after class and like opened it up for me to ask questions. So that was really cool. And he knew some of my undergrad professors, so we talked about that. So it was really nice just being able to get that. And then as I was going down in the Ricks area at the Willamette, they introduced me to a lot of the students. So I thought that was really nice. At Lewis and Clark, I got to talk to no one. And there at Willamette, like I got introduced to a bunch of people. And my experience at U of O was similar to Willamette. Not as nice. I mean, no one came with an umbrella, but it was good. But I just ultimately what made me decide Willamette over the other schools, aside from all those like nice things along the ways, was the proximity to the capital. I thought that was important for me. I knew I wanted to extern during law school, so possibly at the courts or like I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do yet, but I knew I wanted to get an externship during school. And then like this semester, I'm actually externing at the Court of Appeals, so that was pretty nice. And just, I mean, the thing was proximity to the capital, how I was treated, and then another thing. So Willamette does have a immigration clinic, and that was important to me. So it just like had everything that I needed.
I thought for sure, I live, like I said, in the Portland area, and I thought for sure I'd be going to Lewis and Clark. It was, you know, proximity wise made sense. My real life attorney mentor, like someone I knew before even coming to law school, went to Lewis and Clark, and I thought, okay, done deal, I'm going there. And I visited all three Oregon schools, and the mushy kind of part of it is that and you'll hear this a lot, is that the people were different. And I thought that was like, oh, that's cute that you tell people that when I was in your position. But then I experienced it myself, so that was cool. Like when I went and sat in on a class, first of all, the people in the office were so apologetic because it didn't go according to plan. Like classes were unexpectedly canceled that weren't supposed to be canceled. Like, oh my God, let's put you in this class. And then it was like, people still remember this story. We talk about it sometimes. And then they go, oh my gosh, that one got canceled. What are the odds of that? And they found me a class, and they just were so invested in making sure I had a great experience. They like checked in with me after. Was everything okay? Like if you need to come back, we can do it again. And then Dean Straley sat with me. I don't remember if that was the same day or a different day, but like sat with me and talked to me for like, I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe a half hour. I can't remember exactly, but just answered all my questions. And then the students in the class that I went to, that was not a planned class for me to go to, I like, one of them gave me his number, said if I need anything, let him know. And that really just struck me as odd for what you kind of build up law school to be before you go. You think it's going to be like, so that collegial atmosphere, don't get me wrong, people are, you know, in it to do well, and that as well. But I feel like here you don't have to sacrifice one for the other, which is really nice. And then the administration and the people that work for the school just put a really good first impression. And some people might flip a coin if they have a hard decision to make. My wife would kill me if she knew I was bringing her up in this, but I'll tell her afterward. But she has an amazing gut instinct about things. So I just took her to all three schools after I couldn't make up my mind. And I was like, okay, where should I go? She's like, Willamette, I'm getting good vibes. I was like, all right, cool. That's so fun. So she helped me lock down that decision.
Yeah, I also had a great visit, and I'm sorry you guys can't visit right now, but if you want our emails, you can have them. If there's an area you want to talk about, tell admissions, they'll find you someone. We want to have those conversations with you guys too, so.
All right, thank you. And panelists, if you would like to put your email address, if you feel comfortable doing that, email address in the chat, then that can be available to our admitted students. Let's see, we have another question. Alexandra is asking about when would you usually join a club such as the Public Interest Law Project? And if you guys could also expand upon the clubs and the activities that you have been engaged in on campus, that would be helpful. Thank you.
I'll answer the timing question first. Pretty much you join all the clubs your first year, you run them your second year, your third year, maybe you cruise by club-wise. But then there's also all the clinics, which maybe Jaime, did you see you were doing a clinic? I haven't done one, so I can't speak to it, but those would be your second and third year when you get that hands-on experience.
Yeah, the only thing to add to that, so I haven't done a clinic yet, but I will be doing one my 3L year. So next fall I should be in the immigration clinic. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you join every single club at the club fair, which is sometime during orientation. And then you kind of get to see what you like and what you don't. So just by attending the events. So that's how I kind of made up my mind. Okay, I want to be a part of the Multicultural Law Student Association group and the Latinx club that I'm on a part of. And so once seeing that, I wanted to get involved my second year. So I actually ran for president. So yeah, and I was unopposed, so I won, which was nice. But yeah, and then third year, I don't plan on getting involved with any clubs. I mean, I'll still be for the Multicultural Law Student Association group, like attend meetings and stuff. But as far as like holding a position, I won't do that 3L year.
All right, thank you. I think it was Blaine who mentioned earlier the term cold calling. So can you guys talk a little bit, and maybe it wasn't, I'll mention it, cold calling. Can you guys mention or talk a little bit about what that means? Have you experienced it? Did your blood pressure rise? Anything about cold calling in the classroom?
It's really not that bad. That's what I gotta say. It's not that bad. I didn't know what it was. So prior to coming to law school, I didn't really do enough research. I found out like once I got here, they're all talking about your grades based on one exam and all of this. You're gonna get cold called, which I was still like new to the term, so I didn't really know what that meant. First time I got cold called, I will say the first time is always the hardest for any class, whatever class is new class you're into, just because the professors differ on how they cold call and what kind of questions they ask, whether they come with other questions and like how they take it. Some of them are super easy. So the first time is always the hardest, but it's not that bad. All it is, the professor's gonna, for the most part, they just want to know the cases that you read. So they'll ask you, what were the facts? What's the issue? And then you're kind of just put on the spot, and then they just follow up questions are usually the hard ones, but yeah, it's not that bad.
I kind of like cold calling. So it's basically like a surprise attack. Some of them, like Professor Friedman, if any of you went to the faculty panel, he has a deck of index cards with your name and your face, and he shuffles. And then when he has a question, he'll, pull your card and he'll say, like, whatever your preferred pronoun is, he'll be like, oh, Ms. Mizuta. And then he asks you the question, and that's cold. So you got to answer it cold. And it's like the worst feeling when you get it wrong in front of like 60 people that no one remembers, only you. But when you get it right, that is such a good feeling that it like makes up for the time you felt dumb because you didn't know. And then you're like, yes, got a cold card. So, and it kind of, I think it's at its zenith your first year. It's really, for me, I think a third of my classes now do cold calling. And often if you flub a cold call or you just straight up don't know, you can just be like, oh, I'd like co-counsel. And then one of your peers who knows what's happening, they will bail you out and you will appreciate them and you will try to do that for other people. So it's not a bad time.
I would say for cold calling, it's easy for me as someone who's very extroverted and I have no shame. So like I can't be embarrassed. You can try, but I'll just laugh it off. That's not to say I'm not in embarrassing situations and you get it wrong, you don't feel bad, but just it kind of rolls off my back. So speaking as that person, it's not a big deal. But I can imagine if you're very introverted or you don't like public speaking, it can be a nightmare. And all I would say is you'll get through it and everyone gets put through the ringer. And even the people that feel so calm and cool and collected when they're speaking doesn't mean they're getting things right. And just because you make a mistake doesn't mean anything about your ability as a lawyer. You are not supposed to know anything when you come here. A couple tips for doing better at cold calling is, you've probably heard of briefing at this point, and if you haven't, check it out. There's lots of tactics for a good briefing, but don't come in with one template for doing it, because what I learned very quickly is that one brief for one professor will not work for the right information I need for another professor. So there's lots of tactics like, okay, write down the holding, write down this, write down that, and you need to get way more specific for certain professors, and sometimes the generic template works fine. So and then sometimes you can just do it by highlighting in the book or whatever, and figure out what strategy works for you, but adapt it to each professor, because different professors will ask for different things. And just be honest if you don't know, or if you didn't do the reading, just for the sake of yourself, just be honest. They always know. And there's a few professors who really like when you won't admit it and you're really trying to fake it, they just love to just keep going. And to Megan's point of no one's going to remember when you make a mistake, they're really not. The only thing I've heard people remember is when other people are disrespectful when people make a mistake. So people remember that. You'll hear often that it's a small community of lawyers in Oregon. It starts at law school. Just be empathetic for those other people that are answering. Know that not everyone might be as comfortable as you with speaking, and you are bound to make a mistake. So just, help that person out next time, give them encouragement, whatever it is, but watch your poker face, and don't be judging anyone for giving what you thought was maybe a stupid answer, because that's going to be you in a few more weeks. So it all comes around eventually.
Thank you. I want to say that I really appreciate the honesty from our panelists. So I want all of our admitted students to know that from the admissions perspective, we always ask our panelists to be honest about their experiences at Willamette. For all of the admitted students, this is your opportunity to find the best fit for you. And we will present to you what Willamette is like, and really it is your job to find the best fit for yourself. So I want to, thank the panelists for being honest in all of their answers. So Becky has a question in the chat. I understand that the first year you have classes 5 days per week, which is accurate. Is that the same for 2L and 3L years? And then continuing, how often do you find the need to come to campus to study?
So no, not necessarily, especially because in your second and third years, you might be taking more classes from adjunct professors who are practicing attorneys, and therefore some of those classes are going to be like 5:30 to 7:30 one night a week. I think last semester I only had classes on campus 3 days a week, so I worked the other 2. And there's just a huge amount of variation your second and third year with when your classes are scheduled. To be on campus to study really depends on you. If you like studying from home, pre-stay-at-home order, I was there like every day. Now I'm not, and it actually works just fine. So you might find that it changes as you move through your school year. And I'll let Blaine talk about commuting, but I think a lot of our classmates, a lot in Portland, some in Eugene. So Blaine?
Yeah, I cheated. I knew it was going to be a big time commitment, so I stayed in on-campus housing during the week and then came home on the weekend. So not quite a fair comparison. However, I do know several people that commute from the Portland area. It's about, anywhere from an hour 15 if they're way far out versus, around an hour. And I'd be happy to put you in touch with them if you just email me and you can kind of talk to them about their experience. But ultimately, a lot of people like that time to decompress. If you're someone that's really, frantic and anxious a lot and you can't not be studying or something, it's a good break to disengage. You can't be reading when you're driving, or I hope not. Or you can listen to, you'll get access to like these Barbary videos and audios and things like that. You can listen to that on the drive. You can, whatever, or maybe, guilty pleasure, listen to a podcast or something. I mean, it's a great time to decompress, and it's only an hour. And then as far as the studying, with this stay-at-home order, I'm realizing now, like, the reason I'm sitting outside is because there's no designated space for me. I have my bedroom, and then like there's a common area where there's people, so I don't have my own space. So for me, being on campus was a necessity to study. If you have a space that is like that for you, I'd say fine. It doesn't have to necessarily be at the school, but there is something about being at the school, and my background of not being a super good student when I was younger. It kind of puts me in the mode of, okay, it's school time, I'm here. Some people can just, the world can be falling around them and they can keep their focus. So if you're that person, then more power to you. Study wherever you can.
Alrighty. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to get to Caitlin's question and then come back to the question about what life is like in Salem. So Caitlin is asking, as a student of color, diversity is very crucial. What would you consider the Willamette community to be diverse and welcoming?
I would say it definitely depends where you're coming from. I've heard from a lot of my California classmates. It's not really diverse, but for me it is. It seems pretty diverse. But I'm from Northeast Oregon, so not really used to anything other than, I went to my school was about 60% Latino and then 40% white. But other than that, we didn't have anything else. Willamette, that's not the case, but I would say it's the most welcoming place I've ever been at. It's not the most diverse, but it is super welcoming. And then part of that for me, like joining the Multicultural Law Student Association group, I felt like I could relate to a lot of people there. So that's why I joined the club. That's why I wanted to be part of the leadership of the club, just because I felt like I was most comfortable and I could actually relate to someone in school. So that was cool for me seeing that. But even then outside, like I have a lot of friends outside the Multicultural Law Student Association group, and I've actually never been a part of like a more welcoming group than Willamette.
I will also chime in. I'm from Idaho, not a particularly diverse place. But one thing that I think is really cool is there are in the real practicing lawyers of Oregon, these bar associations, like the Oregon Asian Pacific American Law Student or Bar Association. There's a Hispanic Bar Association. Being connected with those lawyers who have kind of paved the way in Oregon. And again, from Idaho, I thought Oregon was like the most diverse place ever, which apparently it's not. Things you learn. But seeing them as partners, as like, if you look at the current president of the Oregon Bar Association, Leonie Reeves, she is an orphan from Korea whose family moved to the Oregon coast. She's a Bearcat, by the way, class 2001. So it's there in the Oregon legal community too, after you leave Willamette. And they're reaching into Willamette and the other Oregon law schools as your student, getting you those connections and showing you that there are people like you practicing and really thriving in the Oregon bar.
Okay, on to the question about Salem. So for anyone moving to Salem, which I imagine a lot of us have done to come into the Willamette community, can you tell us a little bit about what life is like in Salem? And then Tia had also asked, someone coming from out of state, did you find that the Salem community was welcoming?
I want to go because I love Salem. I think I've said it before, I feel like a lot of people don't like Salem, but like I went running this morning and I saw otters in the river, and it takes me 10 minutes to get to school. I can afford to live in this little cute 90s apartment. The Capitol is there. It's full of cherry blossoms and state legislators and justices. I wish there were a shopping mall. There's kind of a very dinky one, but I am pro Salem. I like it.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely, like, my wife's been in Portland since she was like 6 years old. And so definitely there's a stigma of like, oh, Portland's so great. And so I was expecting, like, I don't know what I was expecting, like tumbleweeds and like weird stuff in Salem. But it's great. Like there's places in Salem I'd rather be than downtown Portland. So it's, you know, is it the funky nightlife of like Southern California where I grew up? No. It's still a small town and all that, but it's beautiful. And the campus, once you guys are able to go to the campus, if you haven't, it is a gorgeous campus. And the community is pretty plugged into the school as well. So I think it's great. I will say, if you're coming from out, it is a culture shock, and this kind of goes to the question before about representation of people of color and just different marginalized groups and things. It's Oregon. So, I mean, if you're not from Oregon and you're from a state where there's just a lot more people, you know, if you're from the Seattle area, you're from, you know, California, or you're, you know, somewhere else, be prepared for that. Just the state in general is a lot different. There's not the diverse amount of kinds of people just in the state in general. So just be prepared for that. It can be kind of a culture shock. That's coming from me, the white, heterosexual, cisgendered male. So, so just be prepared for that. But it's honestly a very, like, part of my decision for coming to Willamette was the welcoming community, the surrounding area is great. And now, like, Bow and Vine, go there. It's the best little like milkshake burger place. You have to go. It's fantastic.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I want to get to Doug's question about this idea of distance learning, and what has your experience been like switching from classroom learning to distance learning? And Doug, we will have more information about what our fall will look like when we are given that information, when those decisions are made. But I'd love the panelists to talk a little bit about this switch from classroom to distance learning and what it has felt like.
Hi, May.
I can go. Yeah, I'll go first. So for me, it hasn't been the best, but just personally, it doesn't work for me. Nothing like from the professors' end or from the school's end. I have a hard time focusing. I mean, I have my Xbox right there, and I can't keep my hands off of it. So it's been hard for me just because there's so many more distractions being at home. But I would say that I've enjoyed how professors have conducted their lectures online. I found one of my professors, I was having a hard time during class. That actually helped when she shifted to Zoom, just because I felt like she was a lot more focused on like what she was teaching. I don't know, it just didn't feel like I was getting as lost. And as far as like the experience as a whole, though, it does change just because there's like really no cold calling. I mean, most of my classes you get assigned reading, so you know when you're gonna come up. And so I had that. Our professor would just call in the same thing. We would go over on Zoom and answer the question. But it's just felt a little different. But I think the professors have done a great job of making sure to still be engaged, keep people engaged, and keep their lectures interesting so that we don't lose focus. I mean, it's kind of hard not to when you have a lot of distractions. I have my bed right here, right next to me too. So it's easy to get distracted, but I think the professors have done a good job.
And I will say each professor's been doing it a little differently, and I think they've all done a great job, but some of my smaller classes, we were still having really robust discussion. And I was very impressed with my professor's ability to monitor the chat, look at the hand raises, talk about administrative law, which is very complicated, and just keep a really lively discussion going where I could see most of my classmates and some of their pets, but I think they pivoted really well, hopefully temporarily, but it's also nice for pre-recorded lectures. I can repeat them or I can speed them up.
Yeah, I think it's not as bad as it could have been. Like the class delivery itself is fine, actually. I mean, it's not that much different, and in some ways it's a lot better. The part that's hard is if you don't have a designated space where you can work and learn, that's where it's hard. So it's the out of class part that's the difficult part. Or if you were someone like me who relies on going to office hours and things like that, not every professor is as tech savvy as the next. And so the ones that are super tech savvy and it's easy for them, it's no big deal. And for the ones that aren't, it's a little harder. So that aspect of it's hard, the out of class stuff. The in class stuff, I'd argue is even better, because now I can watch a pre-recorded lecture after the fact or watch it again or whatever it is. And in some ways it's a lot better. There was one thing I forgot to mention that I said I was going to say real quick, which is you're going to hear a lot about outlines. You're going to ask people for outlines, all that kind of stuff. Getting an outline from someone is not going to help you. I'm going to make a carte blanche statement. Working on an outline and asking a mentor or someone a 2L, 3L to look at it for you and give you recommendations and then maybe compare with theirs, that will help. It's the aspect of touching the information. Jaime disagrees. It's the aspect of touching the information, and you don't necessarily have to do an outline if you're touching the information, but I just wanted to throw that plug out there because people just think if I just have the outline, I'm going to do great. It's a magic paper. It's not magic. It's you have to put the magic into it. So.
Fair enough. I just want to add one quick thing to that. So some of my professors, not about the outlines, but some of the professors have actually like stayed after class and they come early. So just in case you have any questions from the previous day or anything that you're having a hard time. So they've opened it up to that. I think all of my professors actually have. And then all of them also say, if you have any other questions, email me, we can set up a Zoom meeting. So they've opened it up for that, which is really nice.
All right. Any other questions? Anyone want to rapidly type something in the chat area for our last minute or so? Okay. One announcement. Lots of California stuff, yeah. I love to see it. I moved to Willamette about 2 years ago from San Diego. So yeah, go SoCal. We're all over the place. And I have to say I'm loving Oregon. So I love Oregon. And as Megan, I agree with Megan, I really like Salem a lot. One announcement, we have another current student panel that will be in the same format on the 27th. Different panelists, so different answers, different questions, or you guys can feel free to ask the same questions of a different panel. So we'll have 3 other panelists, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the 27th. So you guys will all receive a link about that. I want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your final study time to join us and to chat with our current or our admitted students. We hope to see all of our admitted students on campus in the fall, or at least in this format if we are not on campus in the fall. As soon as we have information about that, we will send that out, but feel free to contact the admissions office, ask us questions. In the beginning, I forgot to introduce Jordan and Jessica. So can you guys raise your hand and wave for those admitted students who have had interactions with Jordan and Jessica? They are also on this Zoom video. So thank you to our panelists, and I hope all of you have a great rest of the day, and feel free to contact us if you have other questions. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.